years, people will still use something like that rather than touch screen and things like that.
Really?
I
Yeah. I guess because those Facebook glasses, now you can just like talk to your Facebook glasses and it shows you stuff in your eyes. I feel like that's going to be the future over a touchscreen. So I get what you're saying, but
Well, I think having some physical device that you can move on your keyboard is going to trump. Like, people are going to realize there's something annoying about it.
I think so every
I don't
time.
know.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, cool. This is it's officially BB&W getting the setup going. This is perfect because tomorrow at 3:30, Jed is coming. He's sitting down right there
the
in the
big
podcast.
Jed.
Yes. So he's pulling up. So it's perfect. I can just leave most of this in here and just have him.
You just got your studio set up.
Studio's ready to go. But then I'm going to pack all of this up and I'm going to take it to James Crick's house just down the road. So he's going to get the whole shebang too.
Okay.
So yeah.
Do I need to sit closer to this microphone? Am I good?
You can if you want. Like it should just swing towards you. And then you don't have to move.
Go. Okay. That's easier.
Yeah. That makes life easy. I tried to set it up. I like sat in your seat and I was like, how is he going to sit?
Yeah.
Tried to get an idea for it. I think I did a pretty good job. But yes, I wanted to say something and I realized I might want this to be a little higher.
Yeah.
Maybe to help my posture. Oh, that's a little better.
This is a really comfortable chair.
Yeah, it is. Can you guess what it's filled with?
It's definitely some kind of foam.
It's not foam.
Really?
It's not foam. I tried plastic bags originally.
So this chair is an Eli invention.
What's currently in it is you can buy that chair for like $30 from Amazon or Costco or wherever. But the original beads they sell in it melt. So like the first thing I did with that is I took it on a trip when they had all the solar eclipse and it sat in the sun for a few hours.
Oh.
And they melted. And so the bag was just super small. I was like, this is lame. So then I just kept thinking of things. And then when we were in Gilbert, we had tons of bags. Tons. And I was like, this is perfect. And so I would just shove bags, plastic bags.
Plastic bags.
It made it so heavy. Like you could sit in it and it was a good chair, but it would get so hot. So it was kind of rough. It had some rough patches, but now that's like pillow stuffing. Like if you go to Build-A-Bear, that's what's inside there. That's why it's got this like almost teddy bear-esque fluffiness
like
to it.
Giving you a hug.
That's kind of how you want a chair to be, though, right?
Yeah.
If it's not giving you a hug, you're always like uncomfortable. So when I wonder if I marked it or not. No, I don't think I did. When I was riding with Lucas on my way back from Payson, there it is. I guess it had rained recently, and so all of the mountains were super green, like super green. I have never seen all the mountains down from Payson that green before. Like I was like, what is this? Are we in the desert? Did we just like airdrop into Sweden or something? Like what is this?
We're in Ireland.
Yeah. It's just beautiful. And so he like slowed down his speed even, and we set a little nice instrumental music on and all this kind of stuff. And I thought about the one verse in the Bible where it talks about with man certain things are impossible, but with God nothing is impossible. I forget the first half of that. But then I was trying to remember where that was because I was just going to read the chapter. But the only thing that was in my head for a chapter or a verse was Luke chapter 15. And if you know what Luke chapter 15 is, it is just starts with the parable of the lost sheep, the parable of the lost coin, the parable of the lost son. Like that's the entirety of the entire chapter is just parable of lost. And I was like, that's a perfect picture of how God treats us every day. He's always calling us to read Luke chapter 15 as a reminder. Like he's always just putting it in there. And so I just gave him the ability. I actually sat and was relaxed enough for a time to hear that. And so that's where I'd want to start. Where do you think in your life you feel God calling you in that type of form? Like he's saying, hey, you're a lost sheep, come to me, that type of like.
Yeah, that's a great question. Since my first daughter was born, and as we're about to have our second daughter, being a parent is this humbling experience because when I'm at work, you can like get really good at what you do. Or if you're working on a car, you can get to it like technically proficient and you can have a really good day. And if you're good at your job and you have really good boundaries, you can just make sure that you just have really, really good days. And if someone messes up you having a good day, you can fire them or you can change jobs. There's something you can do.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with a child. And there's something about being a parent where it's really humbling. And like one of my friends recently said that their first child was very obedient, just slept really well. And they were like, we are the very best parents. We are so much better than everyone else. And we were recently hanging out. And to describe his second son, the son is eating a waffle off the table. And we're still cooking all the waffles. And he's like, did you steal a waffle off the table? Because he wasn't supposed to be eating it. And as he's eating it, he says, nope, I didn't steal that. And it was just so blatant. And this child who he loves was just ruling his life, controlling him, forcing him to do all the things because the kid wasn't very obedient. And he's 3 years old. So he's just in that age. And so you're asking me if there's like what's kind of pulling me in. It's me realizing when I'm a horrible parent because I just did something wrong. And something wrong might just be at 6 o'clock in the morning when we've agreed that the baby stays in her crib until 6:30 and we don't let her out until 6:30 in the morning because the day doesn't start until 6:30. When she's awake at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, I have to leave her in there and just let her cry. And if I take her out and pick her up and cuddle her, I'm not being a good dad. And so it is a constant reminder, being a parent, that I just need to always be going to God. I need to constantly be checking, like, you know, if I'm going to draw a hard line with my 2-year-old daughter, what's the right thing to do? Because it's not always intuitive. It's not logical. And so I've just found myself constantly having to go back to God and let him draw me in and realize that most of the issues that I'm facing are not issues to God.
Yeah. I think there's a song, I think Chandler Moore sings a little bit in that song, but it's like God-sized problems is the whole theme of the song. He's like, got whatever this names something sounds like a God-sized problem, and like that's their thing or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a really fun, cool song. Is there anything that you're reading specifically right now that is really, I don't know, I guess I asked Micah the same question, and he was saying, for me, it's always Jesus. It's wherever in the Bible I can find Jesus. So if that's kind of similar range where you're headed, that's cool too.
Well, at the moment, I'm reading the Church Bible Plan, and so we've just finished 1st and 2nd Chronicles.
Okay.
And I have never found 1st and 2nd Chronicles to be particularly interesting.
Yeah, that's what Numbers is similar for me, you know.
But this time, it's like the Lord just gave me a new respect for it. Because the difference between like 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles is that Kings was written by the prophets. They were written by it was the story of King David and everyone that came after him. Whereas Chronicles is a retelling of the story from the priest's point of view. So there are certain things that they just mention that are not mentioned elsewhere. And what I noticed is that most of the kings of Judah had a really good beginning. Like King Asa, who is kind of probably 4 generations removed from David. So it's
not far.
Yeah. He makes this whole covenant with God. He gets rid of all the foreign gods. And then later in his life, it's not that he turns away from God. He just starts to do things that are stupid. And there's like 3 kings in a row where they start off really strong, where they stop doing all the stupid things that their dads did.
Cast out idols.
They cast out the idols. They have a covenant. They might celebrate the Passover or something like that. And then after 30 years of reigning on the throne, they go and fight some king, and God sends a prophet to say, hey, why did you pay all this money so you could hire a army to come and fight this battle for you? I could have just fought the battle for free. Like, you didn't have to go and rely on your riches. You didn't need to rely on anything. And I've just been really struck with how easy it is at the start of my day to read my Bible, pray, be centered, and be like, I'm going to be a really good Christian today. Like, I want to serve God today. And by the end of the day, you are so frustrated at this little girl who just will not allow you to put a diaper on her. Or maybe it's my wife and I are having a difficult day at the same time. And trying to finish strong, like finish my day strong. And a lifetime is just a collection of days where you try and finish the day strong. And not getting to a point where, you think of King Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon, where he looks at all of his stuff and he's like, wow, I am so great. It's all because of me.
Avoiding the me-isms in life. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. No, I'm still trying to finish a chronological Bible reading plan that I started in 2022, because they do about 5 chapters per. So you get a little bit of Old Testament, you get a little New Testament, you get a little of the prophets, you get a little Proverbs or Psalms or whatever the case is. So I remember going through those chunks about the kings and reading all of them. I'm like, oh man, it's almost like I'm rooting for him as I'm reading it. I'm like, oh, come on. This guy's almost there. Oh, he doesn't quite make it. It's fun. But I feel like that's what the angels, or I don't know how heaven could be looking down on us. Oh, he's going to do it. He's going to have a great day. Oh, something like that. I don't know. It's kind of cool to think about those things sometimes.
Yeah. And King Manasseh, he's a really interesting character because he's probably the most evil king that reigned in Judah, right? He married King Ahab from Israel, and Ahab was not a good guy. He was married to Jezebel, and Manasseh married their daughter. And if you read the book of Kings, he's just a dropout as a king. Like, he's not high on the list, and he eventually gets taken into captivity with hooks by the king of Babylon. Like, they literally put hooks into his body and all this stuff. And in the story in Kings, that's where the story ends.
Wow.
Whereas in Second Chronicles, it's either First or Second Chronicles, it finishes with this little story of he repented, God restored him to Jerusalem. And so the story of Manasseh is this guy who started off badly and actually ended up seeking God. And that gives me a lot of encouragement that, like, sometimes when things are hard, you just want to throw the towel in, and it's like, well, what's the point of even trying? I've already messed it up. And God just wants us to turn to him, and then he's less concerned about where we were and more about who we are trying to be right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like if that's your focus every day, then you can have really good days, a lot of really good days. Yeah. But if your focus isn't he's doing everything for me, I just have to do my best. That's all it requires of me.
Yeah.
It just makes life a lot easier. What are some things you can think of on the topic of Bible that would be good, like areas of read for Gen Z? Like, I can't remember what the age range is for that, but I think either 2012 or something was the end of Gen Z. So it's a pretty good brick, and it starts in like the late 90s, like 98 or something like that. Okay. I believe it was beginning.
So we're talking about
young
people
adults, basically,
in their late teens and 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm going to say 2 things. First is that the key character in the Bible is Jesus. You were talking about Micah saying it's all about Jesus. And if someone is questioning their faith, which for me, most people I know that are not Christians, they grew up in the church and they walked away from God sometime after they left high school, when they're in college, sometime in their early 20s. And then there's this huge proportion of people that come back to the Lord in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so for me, I think that understanding who Jesus is that is the bedrock, because there are all these difficult topics, like what do people think about the politics of a particular country? And I can say a particular country because I'm from Australia. Or people can say, what about the politics of this hot topic issue? You don't have those questions when you're talking about who Jesus is. And so trying to get a good grid for who Jesus is in the Gospels and who Jesus is in the epistles, like basically the New Testament, that is one way that I've found to be curious about things. But the second thing that I would say is understanding the backstory, particularly Genesis and Exodus.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, I don't think that they have the kind of normal Sunday school upbringing that probably happened in prior generations.
Yeah. I had it, and I know a lot of my friends had it too, but I feel like the parents and the generation of Gen Z is the most broken, just because I think they have the highest suicide rates and highest divorce rate. Tons of things are going on from the generation just before and leading into this. And then, of course, a third of the entirety of Gen Z was aborted. So
wow.
There's a third of the entire generation that's not even there. And it's not because of a world wars. It's kind of crazy to think about. But I don't know, in my mind, I like putting people together and pieces together type thing. So I like trying to answer people's questions almost. Maybe it's not stuff that I have, and it's not wisdom that I have, but it's maybe some that somebody else has. And so I like trying to bring a lot of those pieces together. Probably otherwise I wouldn't be doing a podcast if I wasn't doing that. Checking the folders of my brain.
Yeah. When I think of Gen Z, one of the things that I would really like, if I could just mysteriously speak to every Gen Zer and say, hey, this is one thing that I've learned that would really help. It's that God is good. And it's such a Sunday school answer, right?
It's easy.
It sounds easy, but people don't really have an application for that knowledge. Like the difference between a person who believes God is good and the person that doesn't believe God is good, people can't look at them and say, well, I can tell the difference of the difference that would make. Whereas most people can understand, if you're an angry person, most of us understand how that can hijack your life. And my perception, you don't have a Bible verse on this, so this is just my opinion.
Yeah.
But the goodness of God is the way we are supposed to interpret the mystery of life and the mystery of God.
Yeah.
So why does bad things happen to good people? I don't know, but I know God's good. Why is this horrible thing happening in my life? I don't know, but God's good.
Yeah.
And one of the most successful tricks of the devil, I think, is trying to get us to act like in Genesis 3 with the serpent. Is like, well, did God really do that? He's just trying to stop you. Like, God's not actually good. God's not doing things for your benefit. And when God tells you don't commit adultery, it's because he doesn't want you to have fun. It wouldn't at all be because he wants you to have children in the context of marriage. That we would never assume that. And so I wish people had a stronger sense that whatever is going on, don't question God's goodness. Like, those are good questions, but just understand that it's a question that's never going to lead to life. It's never going to lead you to a deeper understanding of the truth.
Yeah. You can question things, of God's character and figure different things out, because most of those things will lead to God is good. You know, almost every single time. That's where you should end up if you get the proper person answering your question. Yeah. But yeah, you should definitely be looking into the other areas in your life, people, decisions, whatever the case is, could lead you to a lot of those things. Yeah. Yeah. The other day I was thinking about the whole idea of like different decisions you make and how they affect the rest of your life. If I had never moved to Gilbert, like if my family had never moved to Gilbert, we would have never met the Kleins. I would have never ended up at Evident Life Church, and you probably would never have been on the podcast, which is kind of crazy to think about, but that happens all the time. And for most of us, we don't even think about that as an idea. And so I feel like God, he's having such a good time, like tossing us all together. And like, you know, a lot of people say, you know, small world, you know, somebody, oh, it's good to see you again. Oh, small world. You know, people chuck that around. Like, man, I feel like God has so many plans for our lives that we don't even see. And so many people are always worried about what am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, man, you should be focused on today because God is doing all the knitting. All you have to do is live your life today. Every day is a new day type idea. And then, you're going to do really good because you're not focusing on the future. You're not dwelling on the past, but you're focusing on today.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. In 2020, I told my wife, I want to take some money and I want to start putting it in the stock market.
Hey.
Okay. And, no, in fact, it was January of 2021. We just got married and it's just something I've always been interested in. I've worked in finance, and that's something I'm planning to go back into later this year. And basically 2021 was amazing. Then 2022, my average loss, like not like the worst possible loss, but my average loss was 90%.
Ooh.
Okay. And since then, my total returns, putting my best efforts into it, like I've probably made 30% over 5 years, which is if I just stuck it into...
It's not bad.
Yeah, but if you divide 30% by 5, I've made 6% per year, which is if I just put it into a 401k and let it go, it would have made more money.
Or gold at this point.
Yeah,
Gold's done. Good grief.
And I feel very strongly that I was trying to better myself. And the Lord has just demonstrated, like, this is not something I asked you to do. In fact, when you spoke to your wife, she asked you not to do this. And like a human activity trying to make what I thought were smart decisions has, like, it's not been bad, and we didn't invest any money that we couldn't let go of. But it has just demonstrated that it's so much easier to do things in line with the will of God. It's so much easier to just trust him and do what he asks you to do rather than what you think is a better idea, you know, because I have better ideas than God. Like that's a possibility, right?
Yeah, exactly. No way. There's no way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how's God been reminding you that he's in control in your line of business? You've been doing business for quite a few years. You've been in Australia. Like you've kind of been around. You've had this very interesting life. I feel like every person has an interesting life. But I mean, there's not a lot of people who are here in this country that they've had a large portion of their life in another country.
Yeah, that's right. So I've just realized there are certain things that work and certain things that don't work. Like being a jerk, that never works. And if you ever find an opportunity to be a jerk, it's bitten me hard every single time. And maybe the only person you're saying sorry to is God. But just having to clean up messes, realizing that no matter which country you're in, no matter what job you're doing, the fundamentals of life always apply. So I was a financial advisor in Australia, and then I quit that job so I could move to California to study at a school in Northern California, a ministry school. And then I ended up back in Australia 3 years later in a different city, and I became a financial advisor again. And then I quit that so I could move here to Arizona permanently. And I remember thinking, well, this was fun. I enjoyed my job, but I'll never do that again. Kind of like, ha, ha, ha. And then late last year, which is I left Australia in 2016. So it's been 10 years since I moved here. I lost my job in late 2025. And I spent a month twiddling my thumbs. And then through a series of random situations, I am hoping literally in the next couple of days to finish my licensing to go back into financial planning. And, someone asked me how I knew what it was, that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And my answer is, well, I've done it before. And it's just been this thing that I've realized I always fall back on. And so it's been this very slow process of elimination of trying to better myself. I want to be able to provide an income to my family. Yeah. So my wife doesn't have to work. And just with all of those things, what I've learnt about business is just follow the fundamentals, pay attention to what God's doing. And it was probably disastrous to my financial prospects in leaving those jobs so I could move to another country. But in going through this process, and now I'm returning to what I used to do, I have a perspective that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And so the last thing I'll say on my business prospects and all that is learning not to regret the great idea that just didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. I feel like learning to enjoy kind of where you are now.
Yeah.
I think Micah mentioned it too. He's like, I feel like being like doing multitasking is just doing a lot of things poorly. It's kind of how he put it. And I was like, okay. And he put that in a business sense. He's like, okay, well, I have one business that I run. But if I were to start up 3 or 4 more businesses and try to run all of them, I would just run a lot of businesses poorly. So I was like, okay, that's a decent way of looking at it, because there are so many people where they're always trying to move on to the next thing. I feel like in America that's very prevalent. Oh man, I don't think people don't keep their jobs anymore. I think 50 years ago, people would keep their jobs for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then they would quit. Nowadays, oh man, you don't have a job for 2 years. People are just moving around everywhere almost.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it sets up a whole new culture almost of doing one thing really well versus a ton of things poorly.
I agree, and partially I disagree. Like, I worked for one bank for 8 years and then left that job, and I have not held the same role for more than 2 years in the 10 years since I left that job. In fact, more than that. Like, I quit that job in 2011. But I have done exactly the same thing in every single one of those jobs, which is I worked hard and I used critical thinking and I brought teams together. And I've, so trying to make sure that I'm doing the same thing in every single role, that has been really important. And over that time, a lot of the jobs that I left were because I might be moving to the United States. But some of those jobs I left because they were just temporary positions and things like that. I don't know if that's relevant to what we're talking about, but
no, yeah, you're applying the same behavior to all different jobs.
And so I think like what I would say in response to what you're talking about with Micah is that whether or not you have the same employment contract for 20 years, that's less important than, like, even if you change industries, it's more important that you are using the same skills and you are developing further skills. Like at one point I was working in a bread factory where they make kind of like 15,000 loaves of bread a night. And it's the kind of job where you go in at 11 p.m. and you come out at 1 p.m. the next day. And it was paying a base income of like $27 an hour, which was good, even by Australian standards. But after midnight, you get double time. So you're earning like $55 an hour.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like pretty sweet. And so there are these guys that with a little bit of overtime, they're earning more than $100,000 a year. Okay. But they're all contractors. And it's the golden handcuffs where they're doing a job that doesn't stretch them. They're doing a job where they're not learning additional skills, but their kids have a pretty decent standard of living until one day the contracting agency says, you know what? We don't need you anymore. Like they can say that halfway through your shift and you're out. And like, I look at that and I've never done that where I've got an easy job that's paying really, really good money. And I've always had jobs that are hard. I've had jobs where I don't typically get paid, but they're stretching me. And I've taken something from that job when I've left and then been able to apply that in the next role that I take.
I feel like every person that's my age or around my age is looking for an easy job that pays a lot of money.
Yes.
Like that seems like what everyone is looking for, which is crazy to think about because the trades are empty. Almost every single trades company is overflowing with work. They need more laborers, all that kind of stuff.
They need laborers at 5 o'clock in the morning. They don't just need laborers. They need laborers that can work 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And there's a great pastor, Tim Keller. He's no longer alive, but he's preached a lot of sermons. And he was once speaking to a bunch of advertising executives. And one of the, like, he was basically trying to say, like, how do you work in advertising and be a Christian? And one of the people was saying, like, I don't agree with the product that my advertising company is having me sell. And Tim Keller's response is something I've never heard before. He said that sometimes you don't actually earn the right to have a conscience about what you do for work until after you've cut your teeth on some things. And I think that there's a practicality where, like, obviously there are certain industries that Christians should just not be involved in. But there are a bunch of other industries where sometimes young Christians are just not very pragmatic, where you can go and set up your own advertising agency. You can go and do these things yourself. But until you've actually got some experience under your belt, God might be having you like Daniel in Babylon, serving Nebuchadnezzar, who was not a very good guy.
Yeah, or like, who is it? Who wore the cloak? Got kicked out by his brothers. Who am I trying to think of?
I feel like I'm
Pharaoh.
failing you as Joseph. I'm
Joseph.
failing you. I felt like I was failing you as a podcast guest.
Joseph. That's what I'm thinking of. Because the same thing happened to Joseph, right? He gets kicked out by his brothers, tossed to the wayside. He ends up, being a servant for Pharaoh. And at time when Egypt needs him most, he literally becomes the guy who's controlling all the food for one of, if not the most powerful man in that area at that time, right? And it's like, well, what was God using him for in that case? Was to do this and that and all these different things. But man, where did he start from? How did he get, It's just, I don't know. I feel like that's a great example for that whole
100%.
idea.
And that doesn't mean that we should take jobs where we're doing something immoral.
No.
But if you're doing a job where you don't like what the impact that the organization is having on society, sometimes you need to go into those industries so that God can teach you a lesson. Because that company, that's not the company itself doesn't make it into heaven. Like, you're not going to get to heaven and there'll be a Wells Fargo bank. There's not going to be a Chevron selling gas. It's the people that go to heaven.
Yep.
And so sometimes God's going to have you working in an industry that you may not agree with, so that he can teach you how to do things differently. Or maybe he can teach you how to do something that can be applied somewhere else.
Yeah, or be a light in that area.
Yeah,
I've heard that a lot
absolutely.
From people where they're like, oh man, this person, they were just having a really bad day, and I was able to talk to him and tell him about Jesus. Like, whoa, if you were never at that job doing something you didn't love to do, boy, what's this whole, end case scenario, Another problem I've seen is the easy job. It kind of goes back to everybody looking for an easy job that pays a lot of money. There are so many college students, which colleges have kind of sold this lie of like, oh, you go to college, you get a degree, like you're guaranteed a job. It's like, no, that's not how that works. Because I've known so many recent college graduates where they go to college, they graduate, they have a good degree, something where you could go get a job for, but there's nothing. Zero, no jobs, because nobody wants to work the Starbucks job where you don't get paid a lot of money. Nobody wants to work the McDonald's job. There's so many jobs that are required in our society. Like, I've seen so many fast food places saying we're hiring. It's like everyone's like, well, I don't want to work fast food. I'm like, well,
I definitely don't want to work fast food.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
But you've got to start somewhere.
If you're 18, 19, 22, like you're in this beginning of life era, you should be looking at a career. But if you can get a job at a coffee shop and you can do that and whatever, and you can learn skills like what you're saying. And maybe it's not something you like to do, but it might be worth doing, right? So I like to say, there's a lot of really able young men working the very easy jobs right now, where they could literally be working the trades and making tons of money.
Well, also, I just think that most of the jobs that are easy for a human being to do are going to be replaced by AI and robots.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, you go to many Walmarts, they don't have people checking you out anymore.
Yeah.
That was an easy job that you could just do on the side. And it is way cheaper to spend $1 gazillion on a bunch of robots than hire people and have all the issues that come with human beings.
Yeah. Or even the little tags for the amount under each item at Walmart. They're all digital now. And they'll have little wires running through every single aisle. And with one type of a keyboard, someone can put AI behind it, so AI can change the price
Yeah.
to whatever it is. Like, oh my, now you have control of everything. That took out, I still remember going to stores where there were people taking out the little paper things and they're changing the little paper signs or whatever. That is another job gone. Well, we got those little robot cleaners at our house. I've seen in like Costco and other big, larger stores, literally the cleaning robot that people would normally sit on is now autonomously moving through the store cleaning. And I'm like, oh
wow.
boy, we're getting there.
Yeah, it's happening.
Sooner or later, it's going to be a cart and you get in it.
Yeah.
And just with all the information on your phone, you just sit in the cart and the cart takes you to all the spots. And then there's a aisle robot and it just drops the item in your cart. And like, you're not doing anything. Like,
yeah.
Eventually, I feel like that's where we're headed, because everybody gets so lazy. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Like the process I went through when I lost my job is I was given 1 week severance. Okay, which is not. I felt like I was entitled to more than that because I had worked there for almost 2 years. But I found myself in a situation where we had been saving up to buy a car. We had some cash savings. We did the Dave Ramsey thing.
Yeah.
So we actually had we had more cash in our bank account than we'd ever had since we got married. And we just, part of having kids means that you just don't go on vacation. You just don't do certain things. And so we found ourselves in a strong economic position. But then I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And you're applying for these jobs on LinkedIn or on these websites.
Yeah.
And AI is writing the job application. I then have AI write my resume, and then AI reviews my resume compared to the job posting. And like, I've heard stories where just small business owners are getting 400 applicants for a single job, which, like, maybe if you're a large corporation that can have some AI assistant go through it to sort them out, it's just like information overload. And so the advice I was given is, unless you know somebody in a particular company, it's really, really hard to get your foot in the door. And, you can always apply and you might get an interview, but the likelihood that there's going to be someone else with more experience that is also looking to get that job is really high.
Yep.
And so I was looking for, like, I kind of did this analysis of my life where I need to find a way to apply the things that I'm good at. And I need to do that in a way where I have more control over my life. And I need to use the experience of all this stuff. And this is where I landed on financial planning, because I've done it before. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I feel like I can apply all my skills, and I'm going to be semi-self-employed. So there's this moat protecting me in case something happens. And that's the direction I'm now going in. And so if people are looking for work, trying to find not the easy job, but the job that has the moat, so that when things get tough, you don't just get eliminated because some CEO decides they want to cut costs.
We want to lay off, however many workers.
Yeah.
Poof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you have to work for yourself, but it means that you've got to have skills that are transferable. And I think a lot of the time those skills relate to interacting with people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Micah was saying it's like punching a clock. Are you going to work and you're punching a clock for somebody else?
Yeah.
Or are you doing the work yourself,
Yeah.
And a lot of that is just your skills, nowadays. If I got 20 years in welding, I got whatever, blah, blah, blah. You list all your things. It's like, okay, what did the next guy have? And you can go down the list. But people skills pays off all the time. Because now everybody's walking around looking at a phone. They have way less people skills nowadays than 10, 20 years ago or whatever.
And it's the one thing that AI will never be able to replace.
Yeah. AI can never help us with our people skills.
Yeah. It can't make you feel more human.
It cannot. No, yeah. It can't help with your relationship problems. No, it can't.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I don't know. Are there any lessons other than like God saying that you're supposed to be here that you've learned in business?
Don't go into debt.
Okay, yeah.
Unless you're going to buy a house. Like, a house is an asset that increases in value.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no easy way to borrow money for any other asset that goes up in value unless you're super rich. So don't go into debt. And if that means you need to be driving a beat up old car, just don't do that. This might, some people may disagree with this, but aim to buy a house at one point. I've got friends that they've lived in this 700 square foot apartment for 10 years.
Whoa.
They like it. It's in a killer location and they pay like $650 a month for it. Maybe it's $700 a month. I don't know, but it's like hardly any money. So they've had this really positive experience. And I said to them that renting is really, really good as long as you've got a good landlord. But when you rent, you don't have control over the landlord.
Correct.
And if the landlord dies or if he sells it and then the landlord's children become your landlord and they're like, well, the market rate of rent for this is actually this much. And people say that owning a house is unaffordable. It might be unaffordable if you want to live in the area where your parents live. And so I've just always wanted to own the house that I live in, possible, like wherever possible. I've wanted to, like, as I said, not go into debt and just be conservative. And
yeah, that's a good point. I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, everything's unaffordable. And it's either like renting a house or renting an apartment is the biggest thing that I hear. I don't hear very many people actually like going out and buying a house. But in the last, I'd say like 6 months or so, the amount of houses that have gone on the market and stayed on the market for longer is growing. Yeah. So the amount of people buying houses is going down. The amount of people who are trying to get rid of their house is staying the same. So there's definitely a lot more houses on the market. But yeah, affording a house that's in the $400,000 to $600,000 range versus the $250,000 to $350,000 range is a huge difference. Yeah. And it affects your payment, it affects everything. And I've heard it all over the place. Whenever somebody's talking about buying a house, they always say location, location, location. That's what matters the most, based off your rates or whatever. But because whatever city you're in or country or wherever, city's probably growing. Look at the rate of that your city is growing. Okay. If it has grown in the last couple of years at this certain rate, you could probably expect that your area is going to go up in value because there are so many people trying to move to your specific area. It's probably going to grow. There's going to be a Walmart there, and your house value's gone up because more people are moving there. It's more desirable. So I feel like it's with a little research, you can find what location works kind of best for you and where that fits in and all that kind of stuff. And then, where do you work? Do you want to drive an hour and 50 minutes to work, or do you want to drive 10 minutes to work? Okay, are you willing to make that sacrifice? Okay, I should actually buy a more expensive house because that puts me way closer to my job that I can see myself that I will have for the next 10 years or whatever the case is, So there's tons of stuff that plays into it.
And it may be that when you're first starting out, you don't have the ability to spend $600,000 on a house. Because if you buy that $600,000 house without a decent down payment, you're going to have all sorts of costs because you don't have the down payment. And so you might be paying like a lot more to own a house than just to rent it. And that's not including the, if anything breaks, which things always break with houses. Yeah. But where it makes a difference is not when you buy the house, but in 20 or 30 years time, when you've still got the same mortgage payment and generally the house is costing you the same, but you've got friends whose their rent is going up by a certain amount every single year, or every couple of years their rental agreement ends and they have to go and find a different place. There's a lot of peace, and over the lifetime that you're going to live in that house, it makes much more economic sense if you can own that. So going back to Gen Zs today, don't go into debt and have savings so that when you find yourself wanting to buy a house, you can actually do something with that.
Yeah. Just thinking about the whole idea of it's like buying or something like that. But there's a something about a house. What was I just trying to think of? Was it price? No, it wasn't price. Okay, so it's the average time that people own their homes. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. The average rate is about 12 years. So it's not even the length of their 30-year mortgage, which is kind of wild. I'm like, you picked a house, you paid 12 years in it, you got a decent amount of equity, and you could, instead of trying to keep up with the Joneses and upgrade, oh, I've got enough equity, I can go jump up to this other house, it only increases my payment by one. It's like, well, okay. Well, if you stick in your house the entire time, maybe you can make money off of it in your 50s and 60s, and then use that as a way to downgrade to a retirement area that you want to live in, instead of, oh, I'm in my 60s, I got to go back to work because still can't pay the house off because this was our 5th or 6th move. We just kept jumping around trying to move up, upgrade our houses, upgrade our life, so that's what I was thinking of. It's like, oh, okay. Not very many people are thinking of that idea of sticking with something.
Yeah.
I guess that's hard for us to do as humans, is stick with something.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of couples where one of them owns a house when they get married, and then the other person is like, yeah, we're selling that house because I want it to be a house that we live in together, that we started living in together. And but yeah, getting a house, and then as interest rates go down, you can refinance it, so you can lock in decent mortgage rates, and then when they go up, you just keep what you've got. It works really well over decades. It doesn't necessarily make sense in any one particular 1 year.
Yeah. In any small chunk of time.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the stock market. I kind of feel like it's the same way with the stock market. You can't really play the stock market in little chunks. You kind of have to play it in larger chunks. It's kind of like what some of the investment guys have been talking about us with, because we have a few investment accounts with a company that manages a lot of different accounts, and they've kind of taught us a lot of the same strategies of like, when you are putting your money in the stock market, don't look at the 10-year span. That's where you should start.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, anything less than 10 years is like, okay, are you market timing? Are you, trying to do all these fancy things? It's like, no. Put your money here. Wait, okay. I saw it go down. Don't freak out. Watch it. Up there. It comes back up again. It's like every business has a down and a fall. I remember reading some article about Google and how all these economists and stuff were saying, oh, Google's never going to do any good and this and that because they had some type of downturn. And I remember seeing an interview where Shaq was like, no, I think Google's going to do really good. And he doubled down and he invested. And sure enough, ching, Shaq got him a nice amount of money for just staying in it. He's like, no, I'm going to stay in it. Yeah. I think those are some good lessons just like for life overall. If you can find a skill you want to learn, get good at it, shoot, that could help you in business. It could help you in here or there, even with like relationships. I feel like a lot of people are so easy to just, oh, you did me wrong, or you didn't, and they just toss somebody around. I'm like, I don't know if that's a very good idea. Maybe forgive that person and maybe take something, maybe you can learn something from them. You've forgiven them or whatever. What would be some of the things that, not like lessons, that's kind of where I'm headed. You've kind of said a few, but what have been some things that you think would apply to someone if they were not in America, moving to America, like job-wise? Like I don't care what job they work in a foreign country, but they're wanting to get a job in America. Like, how did that process go down for you? Because I know you were a financial planner before, but you could have picked any job, but you ended up.
So when I moved here, I came under a religious workers visa. Okay. So I couldn't pick the job that I was working in. In fact, I couldn't even choose the employer. I was like, the rules of the visa was you work for this one church, and if you choose to not work for them, that's your constitutional right, but you will have 28 days to leave the country. Oh. So don't annoy your boss. And I eventually won a green card in the green card lottery, the immigration diversity lottery. So that meant that I had this green card while I was working for this church. And so I could actually work for anyone at that stage. And one of my friends very kindly just pulled me aside and he was like, Stephen, this is the luckiest country on earth. You have more opportunities than anywhere else on planet Earth. And I feel like opportunity is a great way to describe the stock market, where it only benefits you if you have the money to invest in those stocks.
Yeah.
And with opportunity, I found that if you've got the right skills, the United States is a great place to live. If you don't have the right skills, it can be brutal. And if you've got, like, I just have had family members that, like, you know, the saying, you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun the other guy.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, I just need to have a certain amount of disruption, and then my friends and family will start to freak out, and then they will pay to bail me out. Like, one time I crashed my car. I crashed into someone. First time in my life I've ever been in an accident, and the car was totaled. It was a $3,000 car. It wasn't, you know, particularly special. But I was living in Gilbert, and I didn't own a car. And I had a seminary class in Scottsdale. And so I had a call with one of my friends. It's like, hey, I just crashed my car at fault. Can I borrow your car? Like, in 15 minutes so I can go to my seminary class.
Oh, man.
And he said yes. And so I've just been blessed with real good friends. And I was FaceTiming my parents, asking my dad, like, hey, is this piece of metal that's bent, is that structural? And his response is, I'm going to send you some money so you can buy a car. So I've been, like, moving to the United States without having some kind of community that can bail you out. That's scary to me. Because if I had, like, if I didn't have anyone to bail me out, I very easily, I could have been, like, I was in a car accident. I could have had medical bills. And I could have ended up with medical debt. I could have ended up with debt for another car. I could have ended up with credit card debt. And then there is this tax on every dollar that you earn.
Oh, yeah.
You know, your basic living expenses that you can't do anything about have just increased. And it can, like, for some people, it takes a generation for them to get out of that. And so for someone who's moving to the United States, I would never encourage someone to move to another country, no matter how similar you think it's going to be, without thinking about, like, what am I going to do in this situation? And for me, I felt the Lord was leading me to come here. And I just decided, you know what? There's at least a 50% chance that this job, which ended up not working out, there's at least a 50% chance that it won't work out. I knew this beforehand. Yeah. And I was just willing to accept the consequences of that. And I've been, as I said, very lucky that people have bailed me out. And, you know, just, you've got to be willing to be poor. You've got to be willing to say, hey, I don't have anywhere to stay tonight. Can you help me with that? And if they say no, you've got to be willing to deal with that. And pay a ridiculous amount of money for car insurance because you don't have a credit rating, which affects that. And it's like all sorts of things.
Oh, there's so much stuff. Yeah. So what's some wisdom that you've learned from your years of reading the Bible, from doing business, from, you know, moving from one country to another? What do you got in?
Life is never as messed up as you think it is. And, like, all the things that should bring you success pale in comparison to what God wants to do. And so, like, you know, with me in the stock market, I'm trying to better myself. What I should have been doing is just praying and then asking God what to do. I would have made more money if I'd done that. But I once heard someone say that anxiety is when you're trying to carry something that God never meant you to carry. And the solution to anxiety is often to stop carrying things that you realize you shouldn't be carrying. And so when, like, I remember when I first moved here, I was earning $734 every 2 weeks, and 60% of that would go on car insurance, health insurance, and rent. And so I basically, and then I'd put some money aside for food, and I'd have somewhere in the realm of $50 a week to pay for everything else. And you just got to realize that seasons like that last a season, and then over time things change. And so learning to not stress, like my father-in-law says, don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
Because, you know, God has this way of messing with your entire idea of what you think should be happening. And like he will take you to your limit of what you're able to handle, which is way beyond the limit of what you think that you can handle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost one of the better parts of life. It's realizing what your limits are, finding what your limits are. I feel like that's why so many people want to climb the highest mountain they can find, or run as fast as they can, or drive as fast as they can. You know, whatever the case is, whatever challenge that people do in life, I feel like that really plays along with that.
Yeah.
The whole idea of, taking challenges on. Even today when I was working on a roof and I was carrying stuff back and forth, I was like, man, God just built me as a man to work my tail off. Like, he literally, like, the way I was just picking things up, carrying them around, and I'm like, man, I can feel all the different muscles that are working in these areas, and I'm like, I was just built to do this all day. Like, I've been on my feet for 10 hours, or whatever the case was, like, just working hard. I got up at this hour, did this, and I just did it. I had no problems. I was able to go up and down a ladder like 10 or more times, like, no problem. 20, 30-foot ladder, no problem, just different things like that. Just, I don't know, being grateful for who God made me.
Yeah.
So it's just really,
that's
nice.
a really good point, actually. I think gratitude forces you to let go of your idea of what you need, or what you deserve.
Yeah.
And like, that's something I'm trying to practice every single day, where even if something is going bad, I will thank God for that situation because it's the situation that he made me to overcome.
Yeah. He literally did. Yeah, he will never tempt you more than you can bear.
Yeah.
I feel like that also plays to challenges.
Well, and just going back to what we're talking about with God being good, like the goodness of God basically means that if you could see what God was doing from his perspective, you'd be like, wow, you're really good at your job. You're really good at that. And part of believing that God is good, like, why would God ever put you in a situation you're not made to handle?
Yeah, he wouldn't.
Like, would you as a roofer go and get one of your friends who has never worked out and is not physically strong? Would you be like, yeah, go climb that 40-foot ladder and then lift all this stuff onto the roof? Because you know that they would fail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you would not be a good friend in that situation. And we often don't think about God in those terms. Like, you can trust that sometimes he's going to give you a hard job just so that you can appreciate what a good job is.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this has been a good podcast. We've done 57 minutes of sitting. You've been sitting in a very comfortable chair. I've been sitting in a decent chair. That's one of the things I was thinking about the whole time. I was like, man, I feel like this is what I'm going to change onto my next episode with Jed, just because of that. But
and maybe that's how you make sure that you don't go to longer episodes, because if you're really comfortable, like I could just keep talking because I'm feeling pretty good right now.
That's why I put you in that chair.
Yeah, yeah.
Every person I have on, I'm putting them in that chair.
Yeah, like it would have been much shorter if I was in that chair.
Yeah, you wouldn't be as open to just ponder on that for a minute. Yeah, well, it's been awesome having you. Thanks for being on BB&W. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Catch you out, guys. Awesome. All right. Here's my cursor.